too serious.
I don't know. Might have to be.
If the clock on the wall were here, it would say it was 7 o'clock, and this is the Breezy Point City Council for November 4th, 2019, the regular meeting. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Our first order of business is our consent agenda. You have before you in the consent agenda the council minutes for October 7th, the regular meeting. We also have the approval of claims totaling $122,590.13, which includes electronic checks 2412E through 2414E and 2425E, and paper checks 135540 through 135599. And we also have a resolution 1922 to accept the $10,000 donation from the PLCC that is for the improvement of the dock at North Landing. And approval of the consent agenda will constitute approval of that resolution. Is there anything anybody would like to have spoken of separately? Michael?
No.
Gary?
No.
Gary?
No, sir.
Okay. All those in favor of... Yes?
There is a resolution. I do need a motion and a second.
Okay. I can do a motion and second on the consent agenda. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor of the consent agenda as written, please say aye.
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 Consent agenda is approved, as well as Resolution 1922, and I will get a thank you letter out to PLCC as soon as possible. Next item is open forum. Anybody wishing to come before the council and speak about any topic whatsoever. However, I will have to say I think a lot of people are here specifically on the road improvement project. We will have another opportunity to come before the council and speak at that time. So anybody else wishing to come before and say anything they would so desire, please come forward. Nobody coming forward for open forum? Then I will close open forum. Mayor and City Council reports. I'm sure you have been reading a lot about the recycling SCORE funds that have been that are being eliminated. The SCORE funds were essentially a fund that subsidized the trash haulers for curbside recycling, and that is going away. I did speak with Ryan Simonson this week and met with him, and I'm not entirely pleased with that subsidy going away. I have a kind of a major problem with it in how it was handled from the standpoint of it was done in committee and then they sent out an email saying the funds are going away. But they sent it to the cities and they didn't have the cities or the trash haulers involved in the whole process. I'm sure there's going to be more said. I was just reading an article in the paper this morning about it. So that is, the bottom line is that the SCORE funding is going to be going away, subsidizing the curbside recycling in the city of Breezy Point, as well as the other cities that it has been allocated for. In addition, they're closing a number of the recycling sites. It's going to go from 10 sites down to 5 sites. And it's going to make it a lot more difficult to recycle, or it's going to cost us more money at the curbside. That's pretty much all that I had. Gary, you have anything?
No, sir.
Gary?
No.
Michael?
Nothing.
Okay. Committee reports? Gary, committee, anything on the committees?
No, sir.
Okay. Roads committee, anything?
No, there is a meeting in Pequot on the 8th that I know Joe and I'm going to attend, and I don't
Okay.
know who else, and then we'll
And that's for what?
know a little more. It's on a couple of the roads that they want to, I can't think of the name of the road right up here.
Ackerson?
Patriot Avenue,
Pardon?
it's, Pequot's starting to be.
Nelson, I think.
Nelson?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Michael, anything?
Nothing further than.
Okay. Administrator and staff reports. Our first item of business is the public hearing for the Ossawinamakee Road improvement. And Tim, I'll let you get started on that and give us the history and all of everything that's going on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Tim Hool. I'm a civil engineer with Widseth Smith Nolting. I'm not the Crow Wing County Administrator. That's a different Tim Hool. My introductions
Yes,
are always long.
that's-
in Crow Wing
that's-
County.
I'd say it again.
Yeah.
That's pretty much standard. We get this every time.
If anything's bad, then it's his fault. So Joe Dubell, who is the normal representative for our office here at the city, he's having a knee replacement surgery. The handout's on the screen, and hopefully everyone has had a chance to get a copy of the handout. There is a sign-up sheet that's gone around. This is a hearing, so we do ask that you make sure your name's on that sign-up sheet. We're going to go through these items on the first page, A through H. Hopefully we'll answer some questions, but one of the purposes of this kind of a hearing is to provide input to the council and or ask questions. We'll try to give you the answers if at all possible. We might have to do some research depending on the type of question. So the second page of the handout is a summary of steps in a special assessment process. It's a process defined by state statute. Cities that would like to use this state statute come up with their own policy, but it is pretty much prescribed by the state. And we've listed the major steps. Initiation of proceedings can be initiated by the council, or petition of affected property owners. It was initiated by the council due to coordination with Crow Wing County and Ideal Township. There's a report prepared. We did that. Actually, this presentation is just about page for page from the report. Notice of a public hearing. I'm assuming everyone that is here saw that notice. We have the preliminary assessment or improvement hearing. That's tonight. That's the first underline. Order the preparation of plans. As I mentioned, there is a joint project proposed from the county and Ideal Township. There was the first stage last year, second stage contemplated in 2020. The next step would be the improvements would be bid, publicly bid, and a contractor selected. However, the city would hold the final special assessment hearing, so there's a minimum of 2 hearings. This is the first one. The final hearing would be held before a construction contractor would be given the go-ahead, at least from the city standpoint. Approval and certification of the assessment roll and the project officially ordered in. So on page 3, a brief history here of the project. I mentioned, it's not on the handout there, I mentioned about the previous county township project this year on Ossawinamakee. As we moved into the city of Breezy Point, the county rightfully got together with the city, and there are 3 roads proposed as part of this upcoming project.
Ossawinnamakee. We've got the deteriorated pavement. It was last paved in 1997. Graff Road, I'll have a map here in a moment, off on the west end, south and west, has deteriorated pavement, and there's some storm runoff concerns and turnaround challenges. And then Sunset Strip on the south side of Ossawinnamakee, existing gravel. The city's approach over the years has been to pave gravel roads when the opportunity presents itself. There is maintenance on gravel roads that does take some time, and material. So that's the proposed 3 roads. The next page on your handout is a figure. On the screen there, you can see the blue outline. Ossawinnamakee on the top. The little bump out there coming off the top there is Sunset. And then Graff is off on the off on the west side. Those are the parcels in the blue that are being specially assessed. And on page 5 of the handout, the proposed improvements, on Ossawinnamakee, they've used what's called a full-depth reclamation approach, where they chew up existing pavement, grind it in to the aggregate base. It basically becomes more aggregate base. They sweeten the class 5, the aggregate base, and then they'll put 24-foot wide pavement, 2.5-inch thick bituminous or asphalt section. Graff Road, the proposal is to do a very similar construction method with the full depth reclamation, the sweetening of the class 5. In this case, since it's a smaller roadway, 20-foot wide bituminous pavement asphalt section. As I mentioned earlier, the end of the road would have a little extension as far as turnaround to help with maintenance and, if need be, an emergency vehicle. And then the drainage we would be looking at, and we don't have a detailed design at this stage of the game, but we would be looking at addressing drainage. Sunset Strip, I mentioned earlier, it was a gravel road, so there will be some grading done first. There will be the class 5 aggregate base put down, and then a new bituminous mat included on Sunset Strip. Costs, page 6 of the handout. So we went through estimated construction costs, talked with the county, especially on Ossawinnamakee, and then that would translate to Sunset Strip and Graff. Estimated the construction cost for the city portion. We put on contingencies at this early study stage. As I said, we don't have a design done yet, so there's always things that can come up in construction. We subtotal that. Right now, we just use percentages for the soft costs, we call them, engineering. There are legal and administrative costs for a special assessment project. There will need to be some construction services, staking, observation during construction, the feasibility report. So we total up all those costs. They come to $233,000. They're estimated at this stage. It will, as you'll see on the next page, it will be the actual costs that are added into the project that we'll use when we look at a final special assessment. A tighter estimate, kind of start out at the top end of a funnel is the figure I use. We're at the top end of the funnel right now. As we get design done, as we get project bid, we'll have better costs. We think it's a conservative, realistic cost on page 6. On page 7, how are those split out? So the city's policy is to take those total estimated improvement costs, the $233,000. The city policy is to split it 50%. Most of the roadways are paved, and so their policy is that 50% of the project cost would be picked up by the city at large, 50% would be specially assessed to the abutting properties. There are 59 parcels, and so if you do the math with the $116,500 divided by the 59 parcels, it's $1,975 special assessment per parcel. Page 8, schedule. Should the council vote to proceed, it's expected that bids will be opened by the county on or around February 2020. They do want us to get them the city portion plans prior to that. Ideally, it would be great in this month of November. Time's going to start clicking pretty quick with holidays and whatnot. So, with the bid opening roughly in February 2020, as I mentioned earlier, in the process of a special assessment project, the final special assessment hearing would be tentatively scheduled for the beginning of March 2020. And notices would go out as to what that date would be. And then the council would determine if the project would proceed, give the notice to the county gives the notice to the construction contractor, and construction would occur in the summer of 2020. Page 9 of 10, we always put this page in just to give people a heads up on construction projects that on this one especially, it would be coordinated with the county. So the city's going to be working with the county. They're going to be leading the project. There's always challenging road conditions during construction, temporary accesses and whatnot, dust, postal delivery, trash collection. I always ask this question, and it's probably more appropriate during after the bids would be obtained by the county about any health concerns. Right now, though, if there are private improvements in the road right-of-way, I think the county and ourselves would want to know that, so that they can be properly addressed and the construction contractors can be made aware of that. So page 10 of 10, we're at the end of the handout. I appreciate your attention. Couple notes, this is a legal public hearing, and so written comments are acceptable too. The verbal comments tonight, obviously the council will take those under consideration. I'm going to turn it back to the mayor here in a moment. He's going to recognize one person at a time. You can come up to the microphone, make sure you state your name and address for the record, give your comment, give your question. Like I said, some things we'll be able to answer. A lot of things the council will just need to take under consideration. So with that, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, I would ask the council, I guess, first, Mr. Mayor, if any council member has a question of me.
That was the next thing I was going to say.
Oh,
Council members,
okay.
do you have any specific questions for the city engineer at this time?
No, not at all.
Gary? No. Michael?
Tim, can you recap again why Crow Wing County is involved on this project?
Sure.
With it being
So-
Breezy and ideal?
Yep, so the roadway right now that we're looking at is on the city line between Ideal Township and the city of Breezy Point. The prior segment went through Ideal Township, and Ideal Township does not have a city engineer, a township engineer. Crow Wing County is, for lack of a better term, the township engineer. And so that is why all these entities are involved. Does that answer your question? Okay. Good question, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so at this time, I will open up the podium for anybody that has any questions specifically, to the engineer or to the city as to the basis of this project. So, anybody wishing to come up, please do. State your name and address, and
Hello, I'm Bruce Cunningham, 8935 Osawana Key Road. I could spell that for you? No.
OSSI.
A few things. 24 feet, is that a widening of this road?
I apologize, I didn't hear your question.
24 feet, is that a widening of the road?
My understanding it is a slight widening of the road, roughly 20 to 22 feet, depending on where you measure it right now, to 24 feet.
So it's consistent with what was done in the phase one?
Correct.
There is a significant problem with drainage right where the previous project ended. It's a big problem, and we'd like some assurance that that's going to be taken care of. It's a very icy place in winter, very prone towards breaking down. We hate to see that just go to waste 5 years from now and it's trash again. Speed limit. Many of us were surprised that the speed limit on Osseo was increased to 35 miles an hour. Could we have an explanation for that?
Essentially, that was being done by Ideal, and because this is a shared road, in other words, towards the, was it west half or west portion of it? Whatever that portion is. Then comes Ideal on one side, Breezy Point on the other side. And being that Ideal had already changed the speed limit there, we pretty much had to follow suit. So that's the reason. There really wasn't any objections that we could have, that we heard, okay? So
Okay.
we just
And
followed suit.
I don't know
Yeah.
where I stand on it personally. However, you've got one sign that still says 30 on that.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Joe, do you know anything about that?
Should have been removed
It should have. It
a
wasn't.
few weeks ago.
Okay, if one was missed,
I
yeah,
think you missed one.
okay.
It's on the
We will-
south side going to the east.
We will check that out and get that fixed.
And then one other concern. We have a hill there just as you're coming around that curve. It's extremely dangerous. If anybody's going towards the center line, now widening that street's gonna help us a lot, we appreciate that. But wondering if there's any chance to straighten that out just a little bit.
By that curve, what do you mean?
You see where phase one is coming down, you've got a curve there?
Yeah.
You've got condos, you've got a fair
Okay.
amount of traffic right there, you've got another street coming in, and then there's a fairly steep hill, and nighttime you can see the lights coming at you, but during the day, if somebody's coming down the center either direction, it's kind of scary. At least I've had issues with it.
Okay.
So if that could be looked at from a safety standpoint, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Yes.
jotting down these comments, and yeah, we
Okay.
will be touching base with the county on these
I was going to
issues.
say, because this is going to be a little bit more complicated because it is a coordinated effort between Ideal and Breezy. So there will be some issues. On one side of the road, it's somebody else's problem. On our side, it's ours. But we will be working to make it pretty much smooth. Next person that wants to come up. Dave, you can come up too. But one at a time.
Okay. I'm Joan Johnson, and I live at 99057 Sunset Strip. How do you like that? And I've lived there for 35 years. And on Sunset Strip, there are only 4 driveways. It really is just a path. It's where people walk their dogs and there's no through traffic there. So it seems like to blacktop Sunset Strip is kind of a duplication of doing Ossawinamakee Road, because that's where the traffic is. Sunset Strip is, I don't know how the other 4 people who live on the road feel, but seems like it's fine the way it is. I lived there for a lot of years before anybody even put any gravel on it. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, one of the reasons that we do want to pave gravel roads is that the maintenance on the gravel road is actually much greater than it is on a bituminous road, just because of the damage that happens during plowing and everything else, as well as you can have washouts and things like that. In addition, it's been the desire to have roads within the first 1,000 feet of the shorelines to be paved eventually. So they are like our number 1 priorities, to get those paved so that we have minimal impact on the lake. And
I doubt whether that's in 1,000 feet of the
oh, it
shore.
is. Yeah,
Well,
definitely is.
our lot is 800 feet deep, and then we've got that county, the county woods,
Yeah.
public property in between.
Yep.
just my input. It seems
Yep.
like duplication.
And like I say, the high priority on it is because when we are doing a paving project that actually would be including that, we would like to get it paved to minimize our overall maintenance costs. So,
Well, I understand that, but like
Yeah.
I said, I probably lived there for 20
Yeah.
years and nobody even touched the
Right.
road, so there's not much maintenance
Yeah.
to not touching.
well, we do plow that, Joe, don't we?
It's plowed
Yep.
and graded.
It gets snow plowed, yes.
Yeah.
That does, so. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much.
Yep.
David?
I'm just going to speak, my name is David Peterson, I'm a chairman of the Board of Supervisors for Ideal Township, and I can answer Mr. Cunningham's questions. The reason we widened Ozzy Road on our section initially, we had many requests for people to have a walking path, and there's not room to put a separate walking path offset from the road, so widening the road is going to fulfill that. The speed limit was raised, or was put at 35. The township only has basically 3 options for speed limits: 25 miles an hour if the road's less than a half mile long, 35 if the driveways are close enough, or 55. And so to make the road speed limit consistent, we consulted and coordinated with Breezy Point here to do that, so that's why it's that way. The curve and the hill and the winding road there that you talked about is actually Ideal section. We spent a lot of time with several county engineers out there already this fall talking about that. It's a difficult place to do anything, and to straighten it out, it's probably not going to happen, but we're going to mitigate that water problem as best we can there and get as wide as we can through there, and that's about all we can do.
Just want to make sure it was on the list. Thanks.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Is there striping planned?
No. What was the cost?
So you're putting in a walking path in town?
When I went through this.
Yep, hey. We'll make all the comments, to us. I don't want to have people talking back and forth. Okay. Next person. Whoever wants to, yep. Come forward, please.
Thank you. My name's Brian McConville. I also live on Sunset Strip at 9075, next door to Joan. And I'd also echo that I don't see any need at all or any benefit of paving that road at all. There's just the 4 of us. If you look at the bump on the map, about a third of that, there's no traffic on that at all. The section that goes up to the west and goes up to the main road. As far as I know, the only people who use that are the garbage trucks. That's it. So again, I just like to support her comments. I think we should save our money on that part of the project. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Steve Nelson, I live at 9477 Harmony Point Lane. We're in the townhouses.
Okay.
A couple of the things have already been addressed. The ponding before you make the big turn to go up the hill by Dave Steffen's house. That's terrible. The road is slanted the wrong way. It's all the water comes off of the hills and it runs nowhere because the road is slanted toward the hill. The other concern that we have is as you're going up the hill next to our units, there's about maybe 3 to 4 feet. And I think I addressed it the other day.
I was going to say, I think that's what Dave was talking about, yeah.
Yeah, if you move it over 2 feet, you're going to have a drop off that's about, anywhere from 7 to 8 feet straight down. And I don't think you can move enough dirt to fill that in. The other thing I wanted to comment was our units are being included in the 59 units. We're actually off of Oswego and McKee Road on Harmony Point Lane and Harmony Point Road. The only part of our association that's on Oswego and McKee Road is the association itself, the common ground. So I think we should be charged, but we should be charged as a 1 unit, because that's all we really are, is a single entity there. That's how we're taxed, that's how we're identified in this. So I did a quick calculation just based on where we're located within Ideal Township. As part of our property is in Ideal Township. the other part is in Breezy Point. We have about 200 feet of actual frontage. And for us to get a $24,000 bill for 200 feet is $120 a running foot for cost to do a 200-foot section, which that's just bizarre. That's just craziness. And I guess the last thing, I really would like to have you guys consider putting some kind of a stripe down the middle of the road. The fact that the road is wider now in Ideal is wonderful. These big trucks don't seem to know where the middle of the road is. It's better, but it's still an issue.
Yeah.
People are just everywhere. So
Yeah.
that's all I have.
Yeah, typically a road like that, does not have striping, but if the traffic warrants it, I'm sure we could probably come up with something. I don't know, I can't speak, to that. That'd have to be coordinated between Breezy and
That's all I
Ideal.
have. Thanks.
Yes, please step up.
Good evening, I'm Eleanor Coate. I am from 32962 Harmony Point Road. I'm also part of the Homeowners Association. Not part of my original comment, but regarding the striping, you did a great job of widening the road because we can't have a separate walking path. But without a center line and a sideline that protects the pedestrians, I think that we are missing the mark in terms of life and safety. But my primary comments are, I would like the committee or the council to postpone a vote that was scheduled tonight to proceed. I would like, and many of my co-homeowners are interested in more information. For example, what alternatives were considered to replacing the road with kind of Class A, wider roadway? As our road at the west end of Aussie is not as heavily traveled as the east end of Aussie, and I'm wondering if a maintenance program might be more appropriate because the current road is not filled with potholes. It is not in terrible condition. I doubt that you've received any phone calls about it being a hazard other than the drainage, the problems that we have with the ice and the narrowness at certain points. So I would encourage you to postpone upwards to 1 year to reconsider and research alternatives that more likely would have a lower cost and affect the same outcome, other than an arbitrary standardization of roads in the city. I'd like to see what alternatives would be considered and what their pros were, their cons were, why they were discounted if the recommendation of the council is to still come forth and recommend this large $233,000 project. I would encourage whatever solution happens, whether there's a regrade or not, that striping be put in for pedestrian safety and for car safety. As Steve pointed out, it's narrower at some points, and these huge construction vehicles or utility vehicles come barreling down the middle on blind corners. It's become my practice to immediately stop when I can hear something coming or can see the headlights just out of safety. But I think that stripes and shoulder lines would go a long way in terms of safety enhancements. I applaud you for thinking about widening the road where feasible to make walking paths. I have a question on the construction, or I guess from Crow Wing, or maybe from the council. The current bid, is that a fixed bid or is it time plus materials? What safeguards are there in place to keep this from doubling in size?
At this point, this is just an engineer's estimate.
Okay.
Okay. If we vote to move forward with it, then we will send out then we'll generate plans and specifications, and then we get bids on that. And then we will be looking at the bids. Typically, with the experience that we've had with road projects like this, the engineer's estimate has a tendency to be somewhat conservative. In other words, it's a little bit high because he's basically using standardized data and stuff like that. And when the bids actually come in, they're typically lower, okay? And it's at that point, that's when we would have the fixed amount, assuming everything, we don't run into problems during the construction. And at that point, when we get all those bids in, then we have the chance to either move forward or kill the project at that time. Okay. So right now, at this point, I would be hesitant to say put it off because Ideal, we have to coordinate with Ideal, and their project is underway. Okay, and so now we have to move forward and do the other half of the road. And at this point, we're not really committing anything other than just getting plans and specifications. And it will be the hearing in, I think it's going to be March of 2020. And that's when we will actually have real costs. And that would be the time that we could either postpone it or vote it down at that point.
Okay. Would it be part of the process between now and March to be able to look at some alternatives, like fixing the drainage problem and the dangerous curve, but not do, ask them to bid the projects in portions?
And that's a qualified yes from the standpoint of that is when we actually go out, do all the walk downs and the measurements and stuff to come up with the final design. And that's where Tim is taking into account all of these things that we need to have done.
And they come back with more than just one big total project number?
Well,
they come back and say this section would cost this and this section?
No, it's going to be one total project. It's because it is one project, okay, for the whole length of it. But it will be each individual area that has to have special attention, that will be costed out, and it all totals up into the total project.
And that will be publicly visible?
Absolutely.
Okay. I guess I don't follow that this project is imperative because Ideal has done their part of the road. You're an independent authority that granted coordinates with them.
Yeah, this is a shared road, yeah. This is a shared road, so.
Okay, which brings me to my next question. The people on the other side of the road are in Ideal.
Yes.
And they are would be getting the same benefit as me.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they not being assessed?
It is the policy of Ideal to pick up the cost 100%, and it is the policy of Breezy Point that we pick up 50% and 50% gets assessed.
So
that's just the difference between the township and the city.
So is the city's law changeable? It doesn't even pass the sniff test that my neighbor across the road, I pay a $2,000 assessment and they pay nothing. Mm-hmm. And they're driving on this section of the road that I'm paying for.
Yep, and essentially that's the idiosyncrasy of town line roads, where one jurisdiction has a different policy than the other jurisdiction.
And would the city of Breezy Point consider changing your code to handle roads like Ideal does?
That is always a possibility, but it would be highly unlikely that would be able to get through before this project would be completed.
And that brings back my concern about did we look at alternatives that would be as effective, less costly, and not meeting an arbitrary standard that says we're going to update all roads.
Well, we do have a road standard specifically that we have to build to.
Yeah, a very expensive one. Mm-hmm. But looking at the alternatives of just fixing roads where a problem exists immediately is different from repaving the whole road. And that's my comment.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else? David? Oh.
Yeah, me again. And Joan Johnson from Sunset Strip, 9057 Sunset Strip. And I'd just like to tack on to what this lady previous to me said. It is not a through road. It's a dead-end road. And the further down the road you go, the less traffic there is. So there's a turnaround at the end of Graff, and then when you get to Ossawinamakee Shores Road, which that road, we're not doing anything to that road, but it's part of the dead end that goes along the north and west side of the lake, or east side of the lake. And the road isn't in bad shape. You know, I don't hear anybody complaining about potholes. I do hear a couple of drainage things, but the road is not in bad shape. And does it really matter if it's a foot wider? I'm thinking that maybe the improvements that needed to be done to that road have been done, and they've been done by Ideal, and good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
David.
Dave Peterson again, just to clarify a couple of things. The section where the drainage problem is, from where we finished paving this year, there's 350 feet more that goes by the townhomes and just up the hill a little bit that belongs to Ideal. Okay, so we'll be taking care of that section. So in terms of sections, that's going to be sectioned off, and that's going to be Ideal ourselves. Okay, the rest of it we're going to share. And for the amount that you're spending, we repaved and widened 1.3 miles this last year. It cost the township $265,000. So these costs are very easily in line in my mind. That doesn't seem like a big deal to me in terms of the expense. It's not outlandish at all. As far as Sunset goes, we have a joint powers agreement with Breezy to plow that in the winter. And gravel roads are a lot harder on the plows than paved roads are. They damage the blades a lot quicker. So, and they're easier to plow. So you don't have to worry about leaving it up.
Okay.
As long as you're clear, can I still?
Well, no, I don't want you two talking together, but you can come up here and come up to the podium and ask the question.
Okay. Steve Nelson again. To address his point, from where they stopped paving, which is in the curve,
Okay.
350 feet puts it up by Dave Steffen's house. How are we being charged for that part of the road? That part of the road goes well past our house.
That's 100% ideal up there.
But part of our property is actually in Ideal Township. The 350 feet that he just referenced goes well up the hill.
Okay,
You know where Dave Steffen lives? Okay.
No, I don't.
The townhouses, the road makes a bunch of big turns that goes up the hill.
Okay.
That 350 feet would be well past the Harmony Point Townhouse property line.
Okay.
Just wondering why we're even here.
Okay. Let me bring Dave back, and maybe he can answer the question for us.
The north side of the road there is our road, and so in order to straighten that out, it's going to take more work than you would if you're just resurfacing the road.
Okay.
So we figured we would take care of that expense and not saddle anybody else with that.
Okay, so the expense of doing that portion of the work is totally picked up by...
I know it goes a little bit farther beyond, because right about where you showed me where the mailboxes were, I think. Yeah, that's where it starts to split, and it doesn't get fully split, I don't think, till it gets up to the top of the hill, so we just need to take care of it.
Okay. Please come up again.
This is Lenore Code again. That being the case, if that part of the road is Ideal Corners and they volunteered to take care of it, I would move that the council consider not assessing the residents of Harmony Point.
Well, Harmony Point is actually on Ossawinamakee.
But this road we're talking about is being taken care of by Ideal Corners, as they did the first 1¼ miles of the road that they fully acknowledged was theirs. We should should not then be assessed if they consider that part of their road and are taking care of it?
I don't necessarily, Tim.
So when we came up with the number of units, as a gentleman earlier was commenting, we did count the individual townhome units as well as the property, I'll say shared property. All those are Breezy Point properties. It's not by a footage basis. If it was by a footage basis, then we would start to talk about how much is in Ideal Township and how much is in the city. It's just a per parcel or per unit basis, and so there are units within the city of Breezy Point, and so that's how we applied the city policy.
Okay. That answers, the question then is answered by those units are all in the city of Breezy Point.
But the road is not.
But the
The
road is
road
not.
in question is not.
But the benefit is to the units, okay?
How are you going to access your unit?
Yeah.
I would propose we do a maintenance program and we don't resurface.
Okay, no, let's, okay. Gary?
I apologize.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so at this point, I will close the public hearing portion and take comments from the council. I'll start with you, Michael. Or start with Gary?
Sure.
Start with Gary.
I reserve the right
To remain silent.
to remain silent and answer at the end of it. However, I'll make Michael happy. I've been on many road projects here, many years, many planning commissions and many councils. I can tell you folks, this project has been engineered very thoughtfully, and the cooperation that we have received from the township is superb. It makes the cost of this one heck of a lot less. Our comprehensive plan also, which we are replacing in next year, states to upgrade the roads when possible. In my opinion, it's been done very judiciously. That all said, you have some good points on the striping and the widening of the road. Very supportive of that. I stand ready to make a motion whenever Michael's done.
Gary, comments?
Well, I agree. I think the road, I drove it today, and I think that road needs striping. And I agree with the person, if one of the things is that you people walk on it a lot, I would be in favor of having a area just like they do for bicycles in some areas. They call it a fog line, but a line that would give you some feeling of safety on one side or the other. As far as units, if there's 10 units use that road, then 10 units should be considered the fact that they use it and should be taxed accordingly. Really doesn't make any difference if the road is not quite in the area that they're concerned with, but I do think if you use the road, then you should pay your fair share. That's it.
Okay. Michael, comments?
The striping, that was actually one of my comments to our administrator this morning is when is striping going to be done? That was the first thing I noticed is how wide it was. And that was one thing that I was going to bring up with our chief of police is it a safety concern? Obviously, I'm hearing it out from here, so I would hope that Ideal would be in agreement with it. And getting that striped, especially with the walking paths. Normally, traditionally, a road isn't paved as far out. There's usually a gravel shoulder, so it sounds like the pavement went further for that biking and walking path. So I understand that now. The units that have been discussed and just making sure that we have it in the minutes that we did receive the email that we all have in front of us. A lot of road projects wouldn't have actually been accomplished within the city of Breezy Point if we were to look at parcels and not the actual units. Each one of those units does receive a separate tax statement from Breezy Point. They're all individually part of Breezy Point. And a lot of these projects wouldn't be able to happen if we didn't consider each unit individually to be assessed as part of these road project scope. So that's one thing I did want to bring up. And I think we have been able to work with Ideal in the county to get a fairly competitive estimate so far. And what I've seen so far being part of the council is a lot of times these are conservative. The numbers do come back lower. And that's one thing that's nice about this process is that if we were to move forward with today, that's not saying we're signing the dotted line and it's going to be done. It's saying we want to get the bids done, we want to get the plans done, then get bids to see what that number comes back at. It may come back higher. A lot of times with our road projects, we've done bidding at earlier parts of the year, so a lot of the contractors are anxious to get these large projects, and pricing comes back favorable. And it tends to be lower than what we've estimated at, which becomes more favorable for a lot of people to show interest in it. Sunset Strip was brought up a couple of times. Hopefully those points were addressed with maintenance costs. The other thing is, you may not want, or you may not think you want pavement today, but tomorrow if you wanted pavement, the cost would be a lot higher because the mobilization to get that road paved would be so much more. You're getting the benefit of doing a larger project at once to get a lower cost. So those are some of the things that I've seen so far on the council working with these road projects today.
Okay. Yeah, one more thing, the lady talked, what's to prevent it from doubling in cost? Well, competitive bidding prevents that.
But then,
I'll follow up with what that is. Once the bids come in, once we actually do, and Patrick, please correct me on the process of this. Once we actually agree to what the assessment is, it cannot go up from there. If there's hidden things that happen, that is based on the city.
There may be something that happens, the city takes that forward.
So on that March meeting, once that assessment is rolled or whatever, finalized, that is the assessment. If something happens, that's on the city and Ideal to take care of.
And just reiterate to what Michael just got done saying is tonight's vote is not the final word. The actual final word comes in March. And that's when we get all the numbers in. That's when we actually would have the best opportunity to say this is either a viable or not a viable project. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to proceed with plans and getting bids.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Second. Okay. Further discussion. Michael?
I have nothing further to add than I've already done.
Gary?
No.
Gary?
Very well explained, none.
Okay. All those in favor of moving forward to proceed with getting plans and bids, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We will move forward and start getting the plans and have the final word to say in March. So, thank you very much. Appreciate all your inputs. Next item is to approve sanitary sewer manhole repairs and sealing quotes. Joe, this is your item here, and the pictures that you brought in here I think are very telling. I do remember when I was part of the sewer liaison that we did have leakage into the system that was just unfounded, and it was causing a lot of problems. And so if anybody has never been down into a manhole, this is what it looks like. And this is the repair that would be done, basically lining the inside of the let's keep the noise down, please. This is what the repair would look like by lining the inside of the manhole. Joe, if you want to add anything more that needs to be said?
No, it's all pretty much in the memo. This will be my first experience. We do have a few other areas, but it's kind of a test there's a couple different ways to do it. This bid was competitive. The warranty is very attractive, 10-year warranty versus none or 1 year. So that was my thinking, is this would be a good test bed. This is the problem you don't want to be fighting, overwhelm you, because it creeps up on you. You would not notice the groundwater eating your capacity at the sewer plant. It happens very gradually. And these were caught in our routine jetting where we inspect manholes and we look for this sort of thing. Yeah, and the first one on Piney Way, that's just groundwater seeping through a seam. Lakeshore Drive, you can see that belt going towards that's actually the sealing compound they put where the structures meet, and groundwater pushed it out. So yeah, and then what a normal 98% of our manholes look like the last one, more or less. So any other questions or comments?
Gary, any questions?
Not a one.
Entertain a motion to approve the sanitary sewer manhole repair and sealing.
So moved. Second.
Further discussion? Michael?
None.
Okay. All those in favor of proceeding with the manhole repairs, please say aye.
Aye.
Proceed. Next item is consider selling a vacant lot in White Birch 16. This is a lot, for some reason, the city apparently obtained this lot back in 2000, something like that, 2007. And the adjacent owner would like to buy that lot. And so I think what we want to do is put it out for bid, as we have in the other cases where we have a specific lot. I did look up the value, but I forgot to bring it. The proposed, or the market value?
I believe it's 12,000.
Around 12,000, yeah. I probably have it here. But the owner would like to buy it. So we have an opportunity to put it up for bids as we have in the past, and have like a request for proposal as to what we want to consider, and then the finance committee will evaluate those bids and bring a recommendation to the city council. Patrick, how did we want to proceed on this?
If the council so wishes to consider selling this bid, you would have that ability to do that tonight. In the past, as recently as last year, we went out for proposals on different times, and the city council did not receive the dollar amount they wanted, and they just rescinded all bids, and you have the right to do that at any point in time. So if the council wishes to proceed, a motion to advertise and come back with proposals for the December 2nd meeting.
Okay. So at this point, what types of things would we want to see in an RFP? Gary, have you thought about this?
Not a great deal. I'm listening.
Okay. Michael?
I think moving forward with an RFP, similar to what we've done with the airport lots, similar with what we've done with the parcels that the Conservation Club has secured, I think doing the same thing would be wise to do in this case. While I don't foresee any other, there might be somebody interested in it, but I think allowing any other person interested in the property should have access to do so, and publishing that RFP would be, in my opinion, appropriate. While selling it to them might be the right thing in some people's minds, I think we need to offer it to anybody and everybody to be able to do so. I will say this is, I don't foresee any need for it from a public works standpoint or from a park recs, but they've all had looked at this property. I mean, it's nowhere near anything that anybody could use for the city.
Right,
But-
there are, let's say, picture shows it. On the north side of the parcel, there's an outlot there. That's for the public. There's a variety of outlots that were dedicated to the public on this subdivision, and those are what we need. But in this case, it's a residential lot, and we reviewed it with Public Works, and there's no identified need. It's ultimately council's determination that they don't see a need for it.
Sure. Yeah, so I would move that it would be put in for an RFP similar to how we've published before. Purchase price, what they intend to do with it.
Do we want
Like everything
to
else.
specify a purchase price that we would be willing to consider at this point?
Nope, I think we're open to all offers that are competitive enough.
Okay. Because
It's a pretty decent sized lot, 0.6. I might even be interested.
the appraised value by the county is at 11,600.
Okay. And what has the person offered that wants to buy it?
They haven't offered anything yet. They just said they want to buy it.
Is there any assessments on that property? Do we know? Open assessments?
No.
No, we don't know.
There's nothing's listed here.
Perfect. County changed their website and I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I don't see any special assessment on there. So we will, do we want to put any conditions on it?
Nope, I'm open to entertainment of all offers, and if we need to counter, we can counter.
I think
Are you going to list the, what it's valued at?
Well, that was the question. Do we want to have a minimum, or do we
Yes.
just,
I would just list it, the county value, and nothing but minimums, more or less. Let's see what you bid on it.
well, getting to Michael's point, that kind of locks him into a minimum price. And what are we going to use it for if he doesn't want to?
Nope, I think Mr. Bakken is, all he's suggesting to do is advertising on what the county suggests
Yes,
what the market
exactly.
value is. It's not saying our minimum bid.
No.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay.
Yep.
So we want to have an RFP essentially that states this has a market value of 11,600, and we will accept bids that we can either accept or reject. And we would like to, do we want to put in a clause for their potential use on it, as we did on the airport?
Yep, similar to how we've done with the other two RFPs.
Well said.
How much, what they want to do with it.
Okay. So those, we want to have, in the RFP, we want to have the stated market value, state that we will accept, bids lower than that.
No, we don't need to say that.
Okay,
Nope,
just,
we're
You're
accepting
putting more
bids.
words in it than you need to.
okay.
Tom.
Yes.
Well, I just wanted to make this clear, so when we write this up, that we'll know exactly what we want.
So essentially, Your Honor, what I'll add is item number 4, where it talks about proposed purchase price, talks about proposed use, and a timeline. I'll add number 4 that says, FYI, the county's market value is blank.
Okay,
You can do it there, otherwise you can put it on the top side when you're describing the lot. PID, number, etc., which has an estimated value of.
okay. So is that enough to go on, Patrick?
Yes.
Okay, so we shall move forward on that.
Motion on the,
Is there a motion?
Do we need a motion on that?
I so
Okay.
move.
yes.
So moved and
Second.
seconded, okay. Further discussion, Michael?
None more.
Gary?
None.
Okay, all those in favor of
Aye.
issuing the
Aye.
RFP, please say aye.
Aye.
We shall issue the RFP. Update on the number of RFPs received for our RFP on the engineering services. Patrick, verbal response?
We received 4 applications, or 4 RFPs, including our current engineer.
Very good.
He was going to meet tonight to determine the final interview schedule, but we've got some dates sensitive, so we should be able to move forward. The goal is that we will have a recommendation to the city council for the December 2nd meeting.
Okay. Our last order of business is liquor license renewals. Typically, we do this a little bit later, but Deb, in her infinite wisdom, has figured out that we don't have to wait until the last minute. So she went about and got the information that we need from all those that have liquor licenses within the city of Breezy Point, and we now have it on the docket for tonight. You see before you the liquor licenses, and for the 1 through 5, they have all their paperwork completed. We're still outstanding for Billy's Bar and Grill. We need to get some information on him. And so he still has to get that in before he can actually get everything approved. However, we can we can have a motion to renew these liquor licenses pending final approval of all outstanding paperwork.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Further discussion? Michael?
Chief, any comments?
I'll run the background.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep. Gary?
Yeah, I'm assuming we don't have problems with any of these establishments.
No.
Gary?
None, sir.
All those of approving the liquor licenses for the listed establishments, assuming that and pending the completion of all the outstanding information, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The liquor licenses have been approved. And that completes the agenda items for tonight. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.